Alright, we are back with another game theory. This time we're going to be watching FNAF. Help me solve the impossible. So I think this is going to be like the first actual game FNAF theory we're going to be watching on the channel, which is hype. I can, talk about FNAF because I am a FNAF theorist. So I can, see how I feel about this theory. I feel like me and MatPat kind of see eye to eye on a lot of things, so I'd imagine he'll come to a lot of the same conclusions. But before we hop into it, I just want to pull your guys' attention down to that right there. As you can see, what is it, 1.7% of you guys are subscribed. It's honestly, again, great numbers, but I'm sure we can make that number much smaller. Hit the subscribe button down below and let me know if there's any other content you'd like me to see. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep trying to shift in stuff I watch normally. But yeah, let's just hop straight into the video, shall we? Alright, let's get to it.
Okay, I'll leave you to it. See you on the flip side.
So, I will catch you on the flip side.
Hopefully.
I called it. I totally called it. 8 years ago, I told you that the purple guy was the phone guy, and now
Oh
here
my
we are.
God.
William Afton, our killer, is on a phone saying, "See you on the flip side."
True,
Just like the phone guy
actually.
did all those years ago.
True, actually.
Finally, I've been vindicated. Hello, Internet.
point.
Welcome to Game Theory.
What do you
the show where
got?
every victory is bittersweet. You see, while I should be super
Yeah.
happy that I just had one of my oldest FNAF theories confirmed, instead, I'm feeling haunted by the unsolved mysteries of the past. Let me explain. At this point in the series, I
Okay.
feel like we have a really solid understanding of the story. We know the broad
Yeah.
strokes. We know the general
Especially all the old
timelines.
stuff.
A few big
FNAF's
lingering
1 through
questions that
6.
we've struggled with are starting to come into focus. Where's the placement of sister location? Well, the most recent games and
Yeah.
books have hinted at its connection to the Fredbear era. What's the
Yup.
origins of Fazbear? Well, the books seem to be giving us more and more hints.
Traveling
pointing at the
circus
early days
theme.
of William and Henry's working relationship. What was the deal with FNAF 4? Literally, the final tale of the Pizzaplex all but spells it out.
It
for
is,
us.
yeah.
Some of those are
It's
probably
all
theories
it's
best
a
saved for a later date, but
gas
today, I wanted to focus on
hallucinogen
something else.
situation.
The clues that we've all
Bro,
completely
FNAF
missed. The
4 is
times when this
up in the
franchise
airs
has
with that last
explicitly
story.
tried to tell us something, and we've utterly failed to pick up on what it's been laying down. And let me
Alright,
be clear,
what do
I'm
you
not
got?
talking about me overanalyzing some minor detail of the game world. I'm talking about very clear puzzles that were very obviously set up by the game makers for us to solve that we've been unable to do anything with. And the reason I'm calling it out now
Okay,
is because
you
they're
got
starting
my
to add up.
attention.
In my estimation, there have been no less than 4 of these sorts of major puzzle moments. At
I'm
least
opening
3
my
of them
protein
are
bar.
connected, and it's been going on for the better part of 6 years. So,
Really?
we're all done fangirling over Doug's apps.
I finally got my appetizer. Thanks.
Before Help Wanted 2 drops and adds
Thanks,
a whole new
Matt.
layer
Oh
of
my
mysteries to
God.
solve, I wanted to take a minute to
Friggin'
stop
Doug.
and see if
He was
now,
great.
finally we
He was
were
great.
able
I
to
really
solve
liked him in
these
the movie.
mysteries once and for all. The pieces are in place for us. The question is, are we able to put them together? The first one of
Hell
these is
yeah.
also the most recent, so it should come as no surprise to see me bringing it up here. The tally marks codes that we found hidden throughout FNAF Ruin. For those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
in this game, right before you reach Bonnie Bowl, there's a corridor with a number of real doors, as well as several blocked off AR doors. If you walk through
Oh, no,
one
I
of the
think I
real life
know.
doors, you'll find a room full of
I think I know
baby
what you're talking
plushies.
about.
This is already
Yeah,
a bit
yeah,
weird
yeah,
because
yeah.
the game makes it a point
Gotcha.
to call out the fact that
I don't know why,
baby should
but
not be
I
here.
just- I
Specifically
blanked
with
this.
the AR plush baby toy where the description reads, quote, "What's she doing here?" The answer,
Yeah.
we suspect, is that the Pizzaplex, sister location, the FNAF 6 location, and the FNAF 4 house are all practically built on top
Yeah,
of
it's
each other,
one
or at the very least exist
on
as
top
one
of each
connected
other.
series of buildings.
But
We
they're
go
all in
into
the same
basement of the
area.
Pizzaplex only to find the FNAF 6 location. In a secret ending of Ruin, we see a version of sister location Scooper deactivating the mimic. And in
Question
one of
is,
the
how
final
deep does
tales
it
of
go?
the Pizzaplex stories, we read about how the FNAF 4 house is connected to Circus Baby's entertainment and rentals. So really, to answer
Yes.
Cassie's question, the baby plushies are here because they all share a connected history. A history that is gradually being excavated layer by layer
Sorry.
underneath the Pizzaplex. Anyway,
Yeah.
in this room, the doll's laughing.
Like how
and then,
each-
when you turn around, they
In
disappear.
each little bit, we go,
Surprising.
like,
But
Ruin,
what
we went
is
a little bit deeper
surprising
than we
is
did in
what
Security Breach.
remains in the left-hand corner, right where the
Tally
plushie
marks.
sat. You'll find a chair turned to face the corner
Yeah.
and a sequence of tally marks carved into the wall. And these aren't just random markings either. They're specifically in groups of 2s, 4s, and 5s. And they're grouped in such
I
a way to
didn't know that.
suggest words, or at the very least, separate letters.
Some sort
Now,
of code.
That alone would be weird, but an even bigger, clearer display of
Yeah,
tally
if it's
marks
445, that
appears
doesn't make
again
sense.
about an hour later into the game. After completing Bonnie Bowl, you enter Bonnie's green room behind the bowling alley. Not only does this area show us the special relationship that existed between Freddy and Bonnie, if you put on the Van
Yeah.
mask on the wall over top of the pin loading
There's
staff
more.
is another code.
I didn't know know about
larger
those
and
ones,
much more
though.
organized than the one that we just saw before. And once again, all the tally marks here are specifically grouped into 2s, 4s, and 5s.
Yeah,
No ones
that's
or
got to be
threes
telling
or sixes.
something,
They are
because
obviously meant to be connected.
that's
They're
not how you
obviously
write tally
trying to tell us
marks.
something, but
You
we
always
are
do a set of
obviously
5
not getting
before
the
going on
message.
to the
So
next
what
one.
can we do? Well, the first answer is to try a substitution cipher. Tally up the numbers and swap in the appropriate letters. Notice, though, that the tally marks are weirdly spaced out, which led a bunch of us to believe that we're supposed to be using those spaces to define each letter, adding up the numbers that aren't separated by the space. So the top line there is going to be 4, then a space, then 544, which would add up to 13. It's a pretty darn self-explanatory system here. Doing that for the whole thing gives us a code of 4, 13, 6, 19, 4, 17, 7, 4, 16, 10, 8, 7, 27, 19. Which, if you do a standard number to letter conversion,
Nothing.
gives you this. DM, F, S, D, Q, G.
Garbage.
Yeah. You know what? I'm just going to leave it there.
Garbage.
Clearly, this isn't
Yeah.
working. It's just a bunch of random letters.
Missing
You'll
something
also
there.
notice that there's a 27 in that number mix, which should have been our first red flag.
Yeah,
considering that,
27?
there's only 26
I didn't
letters in the
pick up on
alphabet.
that.
But Reddit user T-Girl
Doesn't really
Lunara
work.
wasn't deterred. Because the alphabet doesn't have 27 letters, they instead took it a step further and tried the whole thing as a shift cipher. A shift
Okay.
cipher is similar to a Caesar
Yeah,
cipher, but
you
instead
just
of the
move
numbers
it
converting
once.
into standard letters like A1, B2, C3, etc., you instead mix up or shift the order
Yeah.
in some way. So now, for instance, A is 7, B is 8.
I've done
C is 9,
cryptography
and so
before.
on. Normally,
Like,
in
I've done
Caesar
some,
cipher,
like,
the alphabet then
little
loops back
puzzles.
around. So if A was 7, Z would then equal 6. But in a shift cipher, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
The numbers just carry on
just stays
is.
as
So in this
a
case,
thing.
if A equals 7, then Z would equal 32.
30, yeah.
For this particular instance, T-Girl Lunara put A equaling 4, which meant that 27 was now X, and gave us the entire code of Ajka Pan damaged XP. Not a lot of lore significance with that one,
Damaged,
but I
though.
did want to continue down that path. So we tried hundreds of different shift and Caesar ciphers. It all
Okay.
came out as absolute gibberish. We also tried just unscrambling
Garbage.
words. Maybe there was another arrangement in there that would give us a
An
more cohesive
anagram.
answer, but yet again, more gibberish. Another solution was presented by user Smart.
This is
Fella
like the
Foot.
security
Not a
logbook
great
back
name
in the
there.
day.
We also
Ooh!
tried adding up the numbers, but this time they didn't do it by adding
my
up the numbers in
things
each group,
messed
but
up.
instead the numbers in each column. Again, notice the odd spacing of all these tally marks. It can't be a coincidence, right? The first column contains a 4 and a 5, so that would be 9. The second is just
Okay.
the 2, next up is 5, so on and so forth down the line. Ending up with this code. 9, 2, 5, 9, 13, 7, 10, 8, 21, 16, 20, 14, 17, 8, 2, 5,
And then you just
4,
rinse,
4.
repeat with all the
This felt
different things.
promising to me, because unlike last time, we only had numbers that fell within the alphabet. So converting all of these numbers into letters,
This
we got
is
ourselves
gonna
the
be
following.
gibberish.
I be bed. We once
Yeah.
again went through with all the classic Caesar ciphers and word
Rinse,
scramblers
repeat,
and all that
nothing.
stuff, but once again wound up with nothing. Back
Yeah.
to the drawing board for the third time. An anonymous poster uploaded this onto Imager, and the same point was later brought to my attention by Reddit user
The
Lowry.
textures?
Basically, what they pointed out was that the tally marks in the corner of Baby's room make a 5x5 grid. A grid that, when rotated or flipped, can map perfectly onto the tally code that we see on the wall of Bonnie Bowl. No
Oh
Rate
my
actually
God.
took this information and pointed out the fact that the main grid arrangement seems to line up with something known as a polybius cipher, which uses
Not
a
familiar.
5x5 grid of letters to scramble or unscramble codes. Basically, a number code like 53 would mean that you go along the top to 5 and then down 3, and boom, that right there is the
Oh, it's
letter
kinda
code
like a
grade. And
small
while it
Visionaire
certainly
cipher.
seems promising at first, sadly the method also came up short. With only 2s, 4s, and 5s as the tally marks, the grid wasn't really giving us any information that we
Yeah.
could use to decode anything. We needed an entire alphabet in here, not just a few random tally marks. The same held true for another famous 5x5 grid cipher, the Playfair cipher, which requires a code word to use. What could that code word be? Who
Similar
knows?
to
Did it
Visionaire, but
feel like we
Visionaire
were
is much
actually
bigger.
starting to make some level of progress here? Yes, absolutely. But did any of it yield us any results? No.
There's definitely
But here's where
something
things
to
get
it. It's just
really
a matter of
interesting.
finding
This
the
isn't first
clue that
time FNAF
breaks
has
it,
stumped
right?
us with tally marks. Rewind
Security
backward
logbook.
6 years, my friends, to the release of the Freddy Fazbear Security Logbook.
Hold up. Hold up. I'll be right back. Where are you? Where are you? There you are. There you are, my friend. There he is, boys. Security logbook. I remember the amount of ciphers and BS in this. And I believe initially you thought there was a Visionaire cipher in there.
home to my two oldest and greatest nemeses, the Foxy Grid and the Dabbing Cheat.
That does look like it's supposed to be a vision or a
For those of you who
cipher.
haven't been a part of the community for that long, let me quickly tell you that this seemingly innocent children's workbook was pivotal for decoding FNAF 4, for giving us the name of Cassidy, for frustrating us to
Book
no
smell.
end with seemingly unsolvable number puzzles. The most notorious of them all was the Foxy Grid, a numeric grid with a hidden alphabet written into its squares, a grid that we still haven't figured out the use of to this very day. You ever read Moby Dick? At least are you familiar with the story about how Captain Ahab's obsessed with killing this giant white whale? This right here, this Foxy Grid, that is my white whale.
That is
This
his
thing
Moby Dick.
haunts my nightmares.
It is true.
This grid
It's
keeps
never
me
led to
awake,
anything.
Which honestly are two very contradictory effects of this one grid on my sleep habits, but that is how infuriating this thing is. I am convinced that this grid will eventually give us the name of the crying child. I just don't know how yet. Anyway, one of the other
I mean,
clues
it would
that
make
really got
sense.
proper use out of this thing were a series of tally marks that were found throughout the
That's
book.
another
The
thing that
fact
wasn't
they're
used.
in red pen tells us that they were written by Mike. Other than that, we don't really know anything about what they were trying to say to us. And so they've lingered on in the back of my brain for over half a decade. Why am I bringing them up now? Well, I wondered if there was a
Crazy.
possible
Doesn't feel like
connection
it's been
between
that
these
long.
two sets of tally marks. You know, besides them just being tally marks. Guess what I found? Groups of 4s and 5s only. Yet again,
Really?
we find ourselves with a collection of tally marks.
Oh
spread
my
over the same
God,
specific
bro.
sets of numbers. Are they connected, or is this just a random coincidence? Not really sure. But the fact that tally marks keep getting brought up and also keep stumping us.
Even if they're not connected, one thing that will probably be the case is once we crack one of them, it'll probably crack both of them because they'll both be the same thing. It feels like they're both the same type of like cipher. It's just a matter of cracking it. And once we crack it, we can solve both of those old mysteries, which would be great.
It's just a wee bit infuriating. And yet the games still aren't done with this puzzle. You see, the tally marks are connected to yet another part of the franchise, Security Breach. Back during my playthrough of the original
Where?
Security Breach, this room in the daycare section
Oh,
really
this-
caught my attention.
I'm noticing that 2,
This is
4,
true.
and 5
This is
are
weird.
different, which is weird. As someone who has
In
dealt
the
with a lot of
daycare-
codes and
this is in the daycare
ARGs
gift
and
shop,
things,
was it?
That feels suspicious. I agree.
2, 4, and 5. 2 years before Ruin, some element, some essence
Yo.
of this tally
2,
code
4,
was
5,
still
you're
kicking
right.
around. But now the numbers were being matched with colors. And so Reddit user Comfortable Map 7594
Bro.
took those tally marks and used these colors to create a sort of paint by numbers graphic, which I absolutely adore as a possible solution, though I absolutely hate the fact that it didn't seem to produce anything. Let me know
Ah,
down
that
in
would've
the
been
comments.
so
You see anything
cool.
here? Because to me, all I'm seeing here is me
I
getting
don't know.
depressed. So maybe we just take a break from trying to decode these things and instead take a minute to look at the world around these tallies to get a sense of who might be
Yeah, there might be some more
As I
pieces we
mentioned,
need.
In the security logbook, we know it's Mike,
Well,
based on the red pen and the
maybe
signature
Vanessa
at the front of the book. But
in
what
the
about
context?
Ruin? Well, in the baby
Well,
plush room, we have, obviously enough, Baby. Not that shocking.
It could be
But what's especially
Elizabeth
important
in
to
some
note
way,
here
or
is that they're
Baby.
not all Baby. See, half the plushies are normal
Some are
Baby,
Scrap Baby.
and the other half are Scrap Baby.
Yep.
What's the big difference? Well, besides the obvious scrap metal plates on their bodies, there's one thing that alternates depending on the version. Something that's been important to Baby since the very beginning. Her eye color. The regular Baby plushies have blue eyes, while Scrap
Which,
Baby has
that
green
means-
eyes, showing the two sides.
That means because, well, Circus Baby does have green eyes during the events of Sister Location, but Baby having blue eyes is Baby before Elizabeth was part of her, and then Baby with green eyes shows that that is a version of Baby that has been possessed by Elizabeth. At any time you see Baby without green eyes and has blue eyes, that is the original Baby. It has nothing to do with Elizabeth. So yeah, very interesting.
It's a baby before and after Elizabeth's death and possession. But Reddit user Dylan Hibbyjink took it one step further. They noticed that the eyes of the Baby and Scrap Baby plushies were scratched out, leaving just the blue right eye from Baby and the green left eye
Like
for
Tiger
Scrap
Rock.
Baby. That right there, that is a compelling detail because
Yeah.
it directly matches up
Tiger
to
Rock.
the evil entity
Yeah.
that we've been battling against throughout the entire game, the Mimic. You see, in the story Tiger Rock, the Mimic AI program takes the form of the digital entity Tiger Rock. A tiger
And
animatronic
there's
with
already
green
so much
left
comparing
eye
Tiger
and
Rock to
blue right
Baby.
eye. Is this confirming for us that the Mimic AI and Baby are somehow one and the same? Or maybe that the Mimic has two souls, or entities
Or
that it
multiple
learned
different
from,
versions
just like how
of
Baby
it.
in the books is two children in one. Elizabeth.
I'll make this quick. I'm under the impression when it comes to the Mimic, I don't think Burn Trap could be non-canon. That's definitely a possibility. But if Burn Trap is canon, I do not think the Mimic we find in Ruin is Burn Trap. I feel like that is like, if Burn Trap is indeed canon, they are separate. You have the Mimic, a version of the Mimic that was put through Help Wanted and then became Burn Trap. Then you have the original Mimic built years ago, like decades ago, by Henry, and that is the one we see in Ruin. And then you have, like, the Mimic line of endoskeletons that Fazbear Entertainment rebuilt. Like, again, I feel like there's so many different Mimics that all stemmed from the original. And what we see in Ruin is the original. And then it's just split off in multiple different areas and became different entities in their own.
and Charlie. Not really sure, but that right there, that is a massive revelation that feels super important to solving the mystery. Or at least it did, until I dug a bit more and found out that the Scrap Baby plushies also sometimes have their left eye missing. It is still a very cool, compelling connection that I'm not willing to fully discount yet. It's just not as consistent as I would have liked as far as evidence goes. The chair, meanwhile, looks like a disciplinary measure. A bad child that was put into timeout, forced to face into a corner and scratching away at the wall to count hours or days out of boredom. Since this is a room full of ghostly baby plushies, it stands to reason that the punished child here could have been Elizabeth. Obviously not physically here in this room of the Pizzaplex, but with the scene recreating
or maybe it is like
from her past in some ghostly
maybe it's Vanessa when she was younger.
Afton wasn't really the greatest dad to her. Maybe this right here is a glimpse of his parenting style. As for the tally marks in Bonnie's green room, the font is the same, so they were likely carved by the same person. But honestly, that's where the similarities end. These marks appear in AR land, as opposed to babies, which are in the real world. This implies that whoever made Bonnie's marks either had the Vanny mask at some point, or is connected to the digital network that's running the Pizzaplex.
It could be Vanessa, because like Vanessa's heavily connected to Elizabeth, right?
Which are at floor level, easily reachable by
definitely seems like, because a whole thing of not only does Vanessa and Elizabeth look alike, Vanessa also had a troubled childhood, so could be a little bit of bleed over here that you see.
Child. So then why these two rooms specifically? Well, a few things come to mind. If Baby is in fact connected in some way to the Mimic and or the neural network that runs the Pizzaplex, we can guess she has to be at this point too. When we deactivate the wet floor bots around the Pizzaplex, we also end up deactivating Bonnie. So that connection into the wider Pizzaplex interface may be important here. We also know that both Baby and Bonnie are quote-unquote missing from the Pizzaplex. Baby isn't supposed to be here according to that AR description.
And Bonnie
was decommissioned from the complex. Again, they're 100%. Obviously loose threads, but in a puzzle with no clear answer that somehow connects two.
And it's also that, and it's like, why is Bonnie connected to what they're called, like MatPat bots? I think the little wet floor sign guys. Bonnie is for some reason connected to them, which again is a whole thing. It's like, why? That's the question, ain't it?
Unrelated characters like Bonnie and Baby, every small detail here is absolutely worth considering. But that's more than enough talk about tally marks. Let me remind you of yet another numerical code that was just blatantly given to us by the devs that us as a community have been largely unable to solve. Remember those Mylar balloons that I was just freaking out about in Superstar Daycare? Well, they have themselves yet another
in Monty Golf
right here on the 8th hole of Security Breaches Monty.
And there was the whole theory that if you got the correct yeah, 3192, and there was the whole theory that if you got the right amount of strokes on each hole, then it would unlock something. Like down here, you see where I'm waving my mouse. If you got the right amount of strokes to fill in the numbers, you would get something. I don't think anything ever came of that, though.
A themed hole, we get this.
3192. That's suspicious.
A handful of numbered balloons. In reality, the number sequence is actually a lot longer. 6369553192. The fact that these are in Monty Gator Golf immediately made me wonder whether this code was the score they had to get in the game. Except there are 10 numbers and only 9 holes. But when has simple math ever stopped the internet? User 00core00
there was the more holes that came out later in
to
Ruin.
see whether they could activate anything. Sadly, nothing. Then Ruin released with a new Monty Gator Golf arcade cabinet, and so people like Yusuf0808 tried again using this exact same code and still wound up with nothing. Here's the thing though, both of these games have been data mined to heck and back. If this code was meant to unlock something inside of Monty Gator Golf, we'd have heard about it already, which leads me to believe that it's
got to be something else, because there's no shot, there's not like a big secret in Ruin that we haven't found. Like there's not like a secret area, secret cutscene. There's none of that will be in Ruin or Security Breach. We've already completely like cut those games down. We've seen everything there is to see. So it's not going to be something like that, but it is very interesting.
something actually outside of the game. Much like I suspected with the tally
Yeah,
marks, it's
like
not
an
about
ARG.
activating some hidden ending, it's about giving us a code, a cipher, a phrase that'll
A
tell
name.
us something about the wider world. We just haven't figured out how to use it yet. I've tried converting the letters, ciphers, you
Yeah,
name it,
a
just
lot.
keep coming up empty-handed. One of our writers even suggested trying hex codes to see if there might be something there.
Hex
At first,
color
I looked
code,
positive.
damn.
The last 6 numbers actually produce a purple that matches the aftons that we know and love so much, but it's not an exact match, nor does the first half of the numbers amount to anything meaningful. Maybe the fact that these are Mylar balloons connected to the multicolored Mylar balloons in the daycare, which then also connects them back to the tally mark puzzle, or maybe I'm just desperately looking for
Yeah.
answers where there are no answers.
Either this
to be
is
had. Now, for all of these
desperation
things,
or this
I
is
was
a
able to find
very,
just a couple of
very
people discussing
difficult
them
cipher.
online, in Discords, forums, Reddit posts, what have you. But for this last one, nothing. Or at least practically nothing. I could find only 2 posts total, which is exactly why I wanted to raise some awareness about it here, because to me, this seems like a massive clue that largely got overlooked during the wave of reveals that happened throughout Ruin.
Alright, what
Early
do you
on in
got?
the game, we have a chance to revisit the daycare attendance room.
Indeed.
This room is nothing new to a FNAF theorist. It was the one that we were able to unlock in security breach by photographing random
Fun
characters throughout
fact,
the game world. Inside of it, we were able
I
to
got that completely accidentally when I played through Security Breach, which I'm so hyped for. I'm so glad I got that. How I did it is there's one right next to the Princess Quest 2 in the Fazcade at the end of the hallway, the maintenance hallway. One of the cardboard cutouts are there, and while I was doing the Princess Quest ending, I accidentally flashed my Fazcam when I tried to interact with the arcade machine, and I ended up accidentally activating the cardboard cutout, and that's how I found it. Man, that I cannot explain to you the feeling I had when I noticed that. Holy crap, that was awesome.
find the glitchy Balloon World arcade cabinet, a lost
Never
relic
forget
to a
that.
seemingly incomplete path inside the game. So when the room showed up again in
It
Ruin,
has like
I
a
wanted to
piece
pay extra
taken out of it.
attention. On the surface, the
Doesn't
room
it?
seems largely the same, just a bit messier than before. Boxes of stuff,
I know the
clothing
machine
hanging
doesn't
from the
work,
wall, some
but
post-it notes
does it
scattered
look like
around.
something taken
Then
out of
by
it?
putting on the Vanny mask, everything resets to normal. The room basically goes back to the way that it was, cleaner, more organized. Nothing all that
Indeed.
noteworthy. Until, of course, you start talking about the notes. Those are worthy. All of a sudden, on a blank wall, we get ourselves a 3x3 grid of post-it notes. What is it with Steel Wool games and post-it note lore? I mean, if I had a nickel for every time
The amount of lore that has been put on post-it notes at this point.
2 nickels, which isn't a lot.
Yeah, it's only
but
happened
it
twice,
The 9
but
post-its that we're
still.
dealing with are as follows. One that says groceries with butter written 3 times. There's a collection
Okay.
of dots, a scribble, footprints, hearts and pizza, lightning
Okay,
bolt, sun
yeah.
and hill, stars and a microphone, and a selection of candy.
Sun and hill.
As usual, my first thought was to jump into a cipher. Immediately, you see how some of these post-its can relate to numbers. We have 2
Yep.
feet, 4 stars, 7 dots, 3 butters, 3 lightning bolts. Felt like a really solid place to start, but obviously it wasn't going to be
Didn't lead
perfect.
anywhere.
We have a pizza post-it, but are we counting the 2 slices of pizza?
Or the 4 hearts.
Or both? What about that squiggle? What's that stand for?
Or
Nothing?
maybe
How about the hill
one
of the
is one
sun?
digit,
Is this
one
meant
is
to
the
be
other.
FNAF 6's graveyard hill, so maybe we're counting gravestones? Or is this more likely counting the number of rays coming off the sun? Overall, converting the
Yeah.
post-its to numbers.
There's so many
doesn't
different
really give
numbers
me
each of them could
solutions,
represent.
But it did feel like a step in the right
Well, aside from
direction.
that 7
there, when
dots,
you look
that's
up
very
how to solve
obviously can only
3x3
represent
ciphers,
7.
The number one solution that pops up is the hill cipher. Now, when it comes to codes, a hill cipher is pretty darn complex, but overall, the key to deciphering one is a matrix, a table of numbers.
Okay.
And if you're using the English alphabet with its 26 letters, you're gonna need yourself a 3x3 matrix. Or let's just say a 3x3 grid of post-it notes. The numbers in the matrix represent the shifts that you're gonna have to apply to each letter of the alphabet. To encode a message using a hill cipher, you first convert the message into numbers. You can do this by assigning each letter of the alphabet a number from 0 to 25. For
Naturally.
instance, A would be 0, B would be 1, and so on. Next, you multiply each letter of the message by the corresponding matrix. For example, if the first letter of your message is A, you would multiply it by the first row of the matrix. If the second letter of the message is B, you would multiply it by the second row of the matrix.
What's-
the result is a new
what's this
number which you can
called?
then convert back into a letter, giving you the encoded message.
I remember
Decode
doing
just
this.
the same in reverse. For instance, if
I remember
had
doing this,
message, "Hello, how
in
are you?"
college
With
math.
This matrix 321110201,
Where
my
you would take a
encoded message
matrices
would look a
and
little
then
something like this.
Calculate them.
I'm not even gonna try. Like I said, it's a pretty complex way of encoding something, but let's be honest with ourselves. When has FNAF ever not been complex?
Well, the whole
After
point of
wall code
cryptography
and
is you
security
want
breach
it to be
was broken in a day,
complex.
Steel Wool was probably looking for something that's a bit harder, some with a bit more lasting power. So
Yeah.
really, a Hill cipher seems to fit this new wall code nicely. There's just one problem. What exactly are we decoding? Sure, we have ourselves a rough matrix, but where's the number or letter sequence that we're trying to put through it? The balloons? The tally marks? I ran them both through a few variations of my own matrix. 3 for butters, 7 for dots, 2 for footprints, 4 hearts, etc., etc. But ultimately, I wound up with nothing to show for the whole thing. Again, it felt like we were getting close to a methodology, but I was just missing some crucial step in the process. So I tried a completely different approach. Rather than ciphers, did this collection of images mean something to me? The candy to me looked very similar to
Were
the
they
drawings
more
that we saw in the
blatantly
original
something?
Post-it room from Security Breach. Same goes with the pizzas. The lightning
Like,
bolts
not-
are designed similarly
are
to
they
the
just
charging
face value,
stations found throughout
or
the Pizzaplex,
is there
as
more
well as
to
the
them
bolt
than
of
just
lightning
how
on
they look?
Glamrock Freddy's chest. Notice the flat tops on the lightning bolts, which makes them distinctly different from other lightning bolts that we've seen across the series, like the controlled shock button from Sister Location. The microphone and stars reminds me of Freddy and the gang. This group of 7 dots, certainly vague, but the number 7 has shown up before in both FNAF VR and the
Yeah.
Post-it room of Security Breach. Usually
There's
it represents
no
the
real,
7
like,
victims,
abstract
5 missing
look
children,
to that.
Charlie,
Seems
the
like it is
crying
just the
child.
number.
7 dots, 7 graves. You've
Yeah,
got
that-
the
that
Hill
in some
Sun,
way is
which
just
is
the number
reminiscent of
7.
the Hill during the Afton and Princess Quest endings, and the
Indeed.
butters were obvious references
Exotic
to
butters.
Sister Location's exotic butter.
Yeah.
Exotic butters.
Overall, all the
Poggies.
Post-its seem to relate in at least a small tangential way to Michael Afton. Man, he really is becoming like his dad, always coming back
Yeah.
with theories. Reddit user Pikmin King
Yeah, I
asked
could definitely
posted
see
about
that.
these 9 drawings and drew all of them back to 2 very important games, Sister Location and Pizzeria Simulator. 2 games where we for sure play as Michael Afton. First, you got
Yes.
Candy that we spoke about. Well, in Pizzeria Simulator, Candy's all over the place. In advertisements
Candy
from
Cadet.
lollies, gumball machines we can buy for the franchise. But the most important one of all, of
Candy
course,
Cadet.
is Candy Cadet, who actually winds up back in ruin. The
Hell
lightning
yeah.
bolts also relate back to FNAF 6 as they're identical to the
They're a
power-up
power-up
that
you can
collect
get,
in the
yeah.
Fruity Maze minigame. Or, like I said, they can relate to the lightning bolt on Glamrock Freddy's chest. An animatronic
too.
who many have theorized, myself included, has
Is
the
Michael.
soul of Michael Afton.
Or is Michael in
inside
some
it.
way,
The stars
yeah.
and microphone call back to the 4 main
I still like
Rockstar
that theory.
animatronics. Freddy, who holds the microphone, along with Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy. The Sunny Hill,
Yep.
well, that's the iconic FNAF 6 gravestone ending, with all 5 of the missing children plus Charlie put to rest on the hill. Along with that, he'd be familiar with the 7th victim, his younger brother, the crying child, so if that's what these 7 dots represent, he'd understand that symbolism. Mike
Yes.
also has a strong love of pizza, as in the security logbook, he literally says it's the only reason to apply for the job, with
Yes.
hearts on the other pages that look similar to the ones that are on the post-its over here. Then there's the footprints. In true classic FNAF theory fashion,
Midnight
Pikmin King
Motorist.
X points out that these are 3-toed footprints, and
Yeah,
they're
like the
almost
feet of
identical
Midnight
to the ones that we
Motorist.
see in
Mi-
the other FNAF
Motorist.
6 minigame,
That's
Midnight
true.
Motorist.
But there's
There are
more
2
feet.
3-toed footprints
There's
outside
more
the
feet in that
window, where
specific
Michael's
post-it
either
note, but I can see the
escapee
connection.
who broke out of that window, or the one sitting on the couch watching TV. The only thing unaccounted for here are the squiggly lines, but to me, that could just represent Ennard, or the Tangle, or whatever robot
be
spaghetti this
anything,
franchise
man.
wants to throw at the wall at this point. Could this mean that Michael might in fact be alive?
Could be
That he's
Ennard,
living
like how
inside the
Ennard
Pizzaplex
was
trying to
inside of
finish
him.
the job that he started? Maybe that's the entire reason the Sister Location room exists in the Pizzaplex in the first place. Maybe it's him talking to the recreation of his younger brother. Maybe he learned the language of the mimic that his father used to communicate with the monster that killed his sister, like we
Jeez.
predicted in a previous theory. All signs here point to Michael,
In
or
some
not.
way.
Let me be
Yeah.
perfectly clear. This is broad speculation based on a piece of
Very
evidence that has
broad.
clearly not
Yeah.
been solved yet. And honestly, that's why I need your help. You've seen all the theory threads that I've been pulling.
Classic, baby. We pull the good old security logbook. We need help,
There are
boys.
solutions out there for all of these puzzles. I
Such a
am
nice book.
almost
I love this
sure
book.
of that. But I need the collective
There's
hive
something
mind
there.
of
There
FNAF
is
community
something
behind me to
there.
pitch out some solutions.
And it's just
The
a matter
posts of Reddit
of
I've
finding
found
it.
today have done an amazing job getting the ball rolling. And I do truly believe that with a bit more time and a bit more focus, together we can solve these mysteries. Last time I did a theory like this, it was 5 years ago. But 48 hours later, you all had collectively
Yeah, they
discovered
solved
the
it
capacity
fast.
inside the security logbook. And now it is one of the most solid
Yeah, and that is one of the
pieces of
biggest
information that we've ever had
things
for the lore of the
ever.
franchise.
Cassidy,
Let's try to do that again here. One
like,
or all
Cassidy's
of these
name was
puzzles are
such a
gonna lead to some
giga,
sort of massive revelation. So I'm
discovery.
gonna link down below to the Game Theorist subreddit, where I'd encourage you to write.
I'll
up
have
your
to see what
theories.
everybody
I'm
has-
also dropping in
has
some
gotten
links to
so far.
decoding websites that'll help make the grind a bit easier, especially for all those grid-based puzzles. I'm gonna be keeping a close eye on all of this for the next couple of weeks. It'd be cool if we could manage to solve one of these things before the year's end. Who knows? Maybe help
Oh,
one or
God.
two will drop and solve
Yeah.
everything for us, leaving the lore crystal clear with no further questions and no ciphers required.
Sure.
Yeah, okay, sure. I'm sure that's absolutely gonna happen with this franchise.
Sure, imagine.
Until that day comes, friends.
then it actually
remember,
does.
It's all just a theory.
A game theory.
Thanks for watching.
Okay, well, jeez, that was a lot. That felt really long. I'm just gonna go ahead and shut off. We'll do a quick little ending here and then move on. So, how do I think about this? Honestly, this is very much one of those theories that you can't really speculate against it. I mean, I get everything Matt's trying to say here. Yeah, it just seems like there's a lot of codes right now that we gotta solve, and it's just a matter of finding what clicks, right? And, yeah, and I think so far he's pretty much brought up everything I could think of. It's just a matter of going through that and seeing every cipher that could possibly apply to it, looking at it from every angle. It's just a matter of time, right? And just getting as many people working on it as possible. I'll definitely have to check out to see what progress people have got done and see if I can maybe take a crack at it. Because I've done a lot of like ciphers for other people to solve in the past and still do to this day. So I've worked with a lot of ciphers. Like I said, Visionaire is one I work with a lot. And like that's what people thought the in the security logbook here. And what Matt initially thought, I remember back in the day, he thought it was going to be a Visionaire cipher too. But it didn't end up being really anything. I'm trying to remember where it is. Oh crap. I'm looking through it. But yeah, so but he listed a lot of ciphers I've never used. And to be fair, I haven't used anything that is really that complex, to be fair. But I'm looking through it, I see all the tally marks. There is still things in this that have not been solved 100%. I feel like we've solved most of the security logbook, but there's still a lot here yet to be solved as I'm going through it as well. God, where are you, Foxy? Please, man. I want to wrap up the video, but I'm trying to find the page where you are. Yes. Yes. Foxy. Because I cannot remember for the life of me vaguely where it is. So I'm just going through the whole book right now. Come on. Yep, there's Dabbing Chica. Yep, there's Dabby Chica. We're getting through it. Come on. Oh, Foxy crying, writing, power. Yep, stuff. I see Charlie's writing. Come on, come on, come on. Come on. Come on, come on. Foxy, Foxy, Foxy Grid. There it is. Much further back in the book, but this bad boy, if it would focus, I'm sure you guys have seen this. It was thought to be a Visionaire cipher, especially since in the top corner, like the opposite side, there is A, B, and C, which seems to heavily imply Visionaire cipher. Sorry that took so long. Yeah, that'll wrap it up. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next episode of whatever I make. Have a good day.